Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the DwnFwdPUNChcast episode 7. Today we have a good show for you. We're going to be talking about branding of the two big giants in the gaming industry, both Microsoft and Sony. Segment 1 will be dedicated to Microsoft and specifically around the new information we learned about Scorpio. And segment 2 will then be about Sony and maybe some shifting that they're doing with their strategy. I'm your host, Jason Saris. With me are my co-parts in DwnFwdPunch, David Reed.
Hey.
And professional sleeper Chris Saris.
That's pretty accurate. That's good.
And joining us today is a special guest chair, friend of the show, Scott Pogros. How are you doing, Scott?
Hi. Good. Doing good.
I like to refer to Scott as Scott the Destroyer because he's like a super Destiny god, I believe, right?
I don't know if I'm that good. I just probably play Destiny more than the average bear.
Yeah.
Have you gotten all the achievements in it yet?
No, but I'm like 50 points away from 100%ing the game.
Holy crap.
So,
jeez, oh man. All right. That's a feat.
So welcome, Scott. Thanks for joining us.
thank you.
Scott decided to swing by so we could talk some Destiny in a separate video, so stay tuned for that. But he figured he'd hang around and stick around for the Punchcast, so we certainly appreciate it. So getting right into it, yesterday, Digital Foundry, which is the tech arm of Eurogamer, had the opportunity to get flown out to the Microsoft campus in Washington, got some time with the Xbox Scorpio, and unleashed a video of all kinds of bananas type specs on the Scorpio. Now, we're not a tech group, obviously. We're not super computer nerds. We know a little bit here or there, so I don't want to focus too much on the specifications, but you can't talk about the Scorpio and what just happened yesterday without mentioning at least some of the specs. I guess I'll start by asking, did you guys catch this? Did anybody read the article? Anybody see the video?
I did watch the video.
Okay.
I was thoroughly confused the whole time. He seemed really excited, though, and so I'm excited.
Okay.
Because he's excited.
And
because
be excited.
Without
right?
any
If it
other
was
prefix
Sony,
of
then
saying
be
he
excited.
went there and saw these things, I believe him 100%.
Okay.
Everything he said is accurate,
All right.
and I back it up.
Gentlemen, either you get a chance to see or watch or read, rather.
I read the article. I skimmed over it. I think one thing, I'm probably just like more of an average consumer when it comes to this stuff. All the tech layout and everything, it really kind of boggled my mind. I guess more thing I'm looking at is what's the price point going to be? Is this something like your average consumer is going to be able to afford? I know Phil Spector said this is something that more like streamers and content creators are going to be looking for than your average, casual player, which I would put myself in. So
the Scorpio is not for you. In fact, they won't let you even buy it.
no, not at all.
Be like, oh, I would like one of these. Be like, you look like an average gamer. I don't think so.
I would love it. No, you're a filthy casual. Not for you.
Filthy casual noob, please leave.
That's what we need. We need to divide even the console community. Because there's that big divide between PC gamers and console gamers. How there's so much toxicity between the two. I say it's time to introduce that same toxicity specifically into consoles. Let's have a high-end console, and they can just be the elitists and just rub it in the face of all the filthy casuals.
I wonder if they'll if they'll ask you are you a Twitch streamer? Okay, great. Well, how many hours have you streamed then? Well, unfortunately, that's just not quite enough. So, no Scorpio for you.
It's going to be like a credit check for when you go to a car or buy a house. It's like, oh, you're streaming. It's not up to par. Sorry.
You don't look like MLG material to me. So, sorry. Anyway.
We'll see. I not to say that all the specs they threw out were things that I thoroughly understood, but a lot of what I did understand I thought was very impressive. The first and foremost, I think the big thing that people are starting to get interested now in is 4K, right? We have the Xbox One S and the PS4 Pro that both technically play 4K, but they use an upscaler to do it. If for anybody who doesn't know, there are two ways to kind of hit 4K. You can either have the hardware natively process it, which actually uses the system resources to produce every single pixel to get it up to that density that 4K needs in order to get that level of picture, or you can upscale it, and there's different ways to upscaling. So some upscalers may use a process where It takes the image and boosts it up to, however many pixels, and then looks for opportunities within the picture to kind of blur some of the pixels. This way it can save some of the system resources. Other ones, like how the PS4 mostly does, or PS4 Pro mostly does, is checkerboarding, which instead of looking for like patches of similar looking pixels to blur, it just alternates like every other block of pixels. This way, when you look at it from afar, you kind of can't see it. So
in the Forza picture that they showed in the video, it almost looked like they blurred like the road ahead, in order to like that stuff you don't necessarily need right now because it's not in front of you. So like it looked like the picture in the front was blurred a little bit too. So I guess maybe to like save resources that way, because it was running at 60 frames per second, I think.
Right, and actually, so what you're talking about there, I mean, some things will look like they're like when you're in life, right? When you're just driving down the road, you're not going to see however many miles down the road with picture clarity. That demo that they showed of Forza
Well done.
is actually running in total native 4K at 60 frames per second, which is a technical feat. I mean, computers like PCs can do this now, but no console has been able to consistently do that. So that was running a tech demo, effectively say like, listen, we said we can do it, and here's proof that it can do it, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Just have a quick question. The one thing I'm really concerned about, and don't get me wrong, I've seen 4K and I think it looks really good. But the one thing I'm concerned about is that, at some point when you don't have a comparison, you tend to not realize what you're looking at, like what's right in front of you. And I've always kind of looked at like this. You go to buy a new TV, right? And you go to like a store and there's two TVs next to each other. One looks really good, one looks not so good, right? I think the thing is, though, the problem is that if you go with like the one that doesn't look so good, once you get it home, you'll never know the difference because you don't have anything to compare it to. So my fear is that like 4K sounds awesome, and it obviously is the next step where consoles and everything is going, right? But are we going to continue to notice the visuals, or are we just going to say like, oh, that looks really good? You know what I mean? Like, is it almost wasted on us in a way? I don't know.
I think it depends, because even when I move, I don't know about you guys, but when I made the move from SD to HD at home, when you're watching television and you're used to SD, you don't think there's anything wrong with it. But once you go to HD,
sure, then
like going back seems like torture.
Yeah, and that I think that was a good comparison for sure. But it feels like we're just going like HD to HD plus. Is kind of what it feels like.
I mean, this is four times the amount of pixels on the screen,
which went from 1080p to like 47 something or whatever.
I think the reason why some people, because you're right, I don't think that everybody can always tell the difference when it's standalone, and I think a lot of that has to do with picture size, because the bigger the television or monitor or whatever you're looking at makes a difference. So if it's smaller, it's harder to tell, but if it's bigger, you'll notice on like a 60-inch television the difference much easier than you would on like a 40-inch, just because it's all about pixel density, right? So a bigger screen, you still have the same amount of pixels, but you're starting to stretch them further and further.
Which usually causes degradation, but when you have such high resolutions, as long as it's able to be, to do that, it's like a picture. The bigger you make a picture, you start to see the like the pixelization of it, right? But if you
don't have
condense
enough pixels to work
with,
so
as long as it's condensed enough initially, and then once it's spread, then you're good. Because if you take a picture with like, say like 60 megapixels versus like 8, you're going to notice a difference based on the amount of how large it gets, I guess.
So some of the other tech stuff, just to kind of get it out of the way, and then we can get more into how this works into their strategy. The Scorpio is going to run 8 custom x86 cores. These are Jaguar chips. It's been
like the Jaguar console.
Yeah.
Have you seen what that looks like?
I've seen the
you're
controller.
Excited for Scorpio.
The Jaguar controller is
one
of the it's one of the worst design controllers I've ever seen in my life. I've had nightmares of that controller. But they're all overclocked at 2.3 gigahertz, which is incredibly fast. Like blows the current consoles out of the water. 40 customized GPU compute units. A ton of memory. Like the current Xbox One uses 8 gigs of memory. 8 gigs of RAM rather, and it partitions it so this way 3 is for dedicated to the UI and the rest are allowed for games. This is going to give a full 8 to the games and then give you 4 extra for the UI. So we got a lot more horsepower there. Comes standard with a 1 terabyte hard drive, which I think is like the baseline at this point. If they would have gone any smaller, I think people would have flipped tables.
Yeah.
What I think is also cool is that it's coming with a 4K HD Blu-ray optical drive, which, believe it or not, the PS4 Pro does not have. The Xbox One S does, but it's not a great one. and this one should be better. So
That'd be cool.
that's a lot of technical jargon, I guess, in a way, but kind of have to, right? Because I mean, that's what the bulk of the announcement was yesterday.
We also said a lot of this too is they're going to support VR at some point too, like the PS4 is doing, right? So some of this is maybe going into VR as well.
That's the idea, yeah. Because you need a pretty, I guess, a pretty beefy system to support VR. That's one of the reasons, like, for the Pro, I wish they marketed the Pro better, saying like, hey, if you're going to do VR, the Pro is the way to go. Don't just get it on a standard PlayStation, because the Pro makes sense. Like, it actually increases the frame rate of your VR games. But they don't market it like that for some reason. Like, the box has nothing to do with VR on it. It's just kind of crazy. But if Microsoft does go in the direction of Oculus, for example, this is obviously a good step towards that, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you need the extra horsepower to run that. I mean, you think about, you have a 360 view in most VR things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most VR applications, there's a lot going on. So you need that extra power to make sure that the quality of what you're looking at is right. And you can't have frame rate dips when you're in VR, because you know how jarring that would be? If you're in the middle of like something where you feel like you're really there and all of a sudden things start to stutter and stagger, I mean, that'd be an awful experience.
I can't even imagine.
Terrible. So, you know, we have varying levels of where we think we're on the consumer stage. Is anybody excited for this? I mean, other than me, I'm definitely excited for it. Anybody else excited? I mean, Topher, what do you think?
I mean, I'm excited to see what becomes of it. I mean, everything that we heard the other day was just like numbers, like check out these really high numbers, 200,000 gigawatts of power, and that's great.
It's going to take you back in time, as well as playing 4K.
We have to go back to the Xbox One launch and fix the marketing promo.
So you're saying the Scorpio runs on like just garbage, right? Like you just put garbage in it and it just powers it?
Xbox One Eco Scorpio.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I think what's impressive about this, in addition to the specs, is the amount of thought and effort that Microsoft has put into this. And I think it says a lot about where they're trying to go with this generation, because everything in this system has been customized. It's been customized and optimized because they wanted it not only to have the biggest specs. They could have just thrown all that in there, but they wanted to make sure it was meeting the bare expectations of what everybody has. Like, everything is going to run cooler because they've developed, this crazy sort of cooling system that's normally not found in anything that's comparable to a console. And they're integrating part of their hardware, part of what was a software, directly into the hardware. This way you can now limit the amount of computations your CPU does from hundreds to do, to render an image to 11, which is insane. It's insane.
Did you hear about that? He mentioned it in the video too at one point. He said something about like each processor is its own unique processor, in a sense where like there are minor variations with each one of them. And somehow or another, they found a method to create like, I guess, the system around it or the board or whatever it sits in, to adapt individually to each individual processor. So it's not like you're just taking all these boards and all these chips and just running them down a conveyor belt, right? And making these things. I guess like each one of them somehow or another like is individualized and unique in its own way. Like what it's something we'll never see, obviously, but in those micro details, there's something in there that is, I guess, extremely unique about each one of them.
Which is incredible. I mean,
that's really cool.
The amount of thought that went into this, I think, is very impressive. I love the fact that, I mean, you guys know that Xbox does the backwards compatible thing, right?
Right.
So the Scorpio, the plan for Scorpio is that it's going to be able to continue the backwards compatibility, but that it's going to improve everything you play with it, right? So it's going to make, your 4K games look great because they're already in 4K. It's going to take the games that are not 4K and it's going to boost them. It's going to take the stuff from Xbox 360, it's going to improve it. It's going to take the stuff that comes in through your TV receiver, improve it, all of the stuff. And to do something like that, they're actually going through every single one of their own games that exist right now for 360 and Xbox One to optimize them from now. This way, when you get the console, everything just works. There's no boost mode like on the PS4 Pro where you got to toggle it on and off. There's no patching. There's no updates. It's just, obviously there's might be some restrictions depending on if like a third-party game won't let them do something with it. But for the most part, anything you just put it in, it's just going to go because they want the user experience to be nice and easy.
So you think the Burger King games are going to look good in 4K?
God, I hope so. Sneak King? I got that bad boy somewhere.
I know you do.
And Pocket Racer? BK
Pocket Racer, that's right. I can't remember. Wasn't there a third one?
I think there was. I think I own all three of them. I think I got them for Burger King.
When we come back, we'll find
the whole
them.
pack for like $2.
that's too much.
Yes, it is. They're awful. But anyways, what do you think? So now that we know more about what they're trying to achieve with Scorpio, what do you think the bigger message is here from Microsoft? Like, what market are they trying to appeal to, and what message are they trying to deliver, and are they hitting it?
I guess with me, I read a Forbes article, one of their tech and gaming guys wrote, I can't remember his name, but he was kind of pointing out the fact he thinks it's a negative that Microsoft and Xbox are going to have now with Scorpio 3 different consoles. You're going to have the original Xbox, you're going to have the Xbox Slim, and now you're going to have Scorpio. So is it kind of like they're just trying to like fix what they screwed up when they launched Xbox One, and like he was arguing that they should have launched Scorpio as like next gen after Xbox One and PS4. Like it should have been a completely new generation, which I think would have been a mistake because it's only what the original Xbox 360 lasted like 12 years before the Xbox One got announced or something like that, and to go 3 years and then say, hey, we're taking another leap forward, it's kind of like you're asking, well, given the console wars and how like PS4 has really dominated here recently, you're asking all these Microsoft, brand loyal people to dump a 3-year-old console and get this new console.
It would have burned a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's insane, right? I mean, what company at this point in console generation would release a new console?
Nintendo.
I feel like you're not being serious here. I pick up on your sarcasm.
There you go.
Yeah, but that one failed. I mean, there's a big difference.
Yeah, no, there is a big difference, and to your point, it does to me at least kind of seem like they're looking at what went wrong with the Xbox One,
Right.
and they're like, all right, let's fix this and then some with the Scorpio, which is fine. That's a good thing, I guess. But I think that ultimately they're trying to make a change to how we think of console generations. I think that's the impact it's
I
going to
like
have
that point because that's
overall.
exactly what I was going to say. Okay. I don't think you're going to see the 5 to 7 year console, all right, guys, we're moving on from Xbox One and we're making Xbox 2 or whatever, right? Or PS5, and instead of doing that. I think what they're doing is that they're making these, in some cases, minimalist changes, right? Like the Xbox One S, it runs in 4K to put the power adapter essentially inside the box, right? And what else? And it runs 13% faster or something like that. That's a minimal change, right? It's cool. That's fine. Smaller system as well. The Scorpio is kind of saying, hey, here is the next generation of the Xbox, but we're not counting this as the next generation, right? We're not saying, all right, everyone scrap all your games, change the engine, move up to Unity 5 or 6 or Unreal Engine 17 or whatever it is, and let's make it for the Xbox 2. So why do we need that anymore, right? That feels a little archaic to me.
Yeah, I think that's what Phil Spector said. They're I think I'm getting his name right.
Spencer,
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
So
that's close.
Hey, that sounds very Destiny-like to me, a Phil Spector.
And of course, it's SPEK.
Yeah. Didn't Phil Spector kill someone? He was a director who killed a prostitute or something.
Killed his girlfriend or something.
I don't know. Something like that. Well, whatever. I don't know.
So I think Phil Spencer was saying that they want to get to that where now you're not going to be having to go through that console generation everywhere. Maybe Scorpio's the end all be all, hopefully for maybe 20 years or something before some hardware or software we've evolved enough to make things better.
I do think that they are not tipping their hand yet as to the long game for Scorpio. I honestly believe, and they've said over and over again that there is not an intention to make Scorpio exclusives.
Right.
And I get it. They don't want to fracture the user base because you have customers that have only had the console for 3 years and a couple odd months or whatever. And to move to a new generation would upset a lot of people, especially because the console, unlike the Wii U, which failed and you can kind of scrap it and start anew, the Xbox One, while it is losing to PlayStation, has been very successful. In a vacuum, looking just by itself, it has sold a ton of units. It's doing better than the 360 was at this point. It's just not doing well in comparison to the PlayStation 4. So you can't just scrap that because you have all these people that bought this. And the original plan was that, I think Phil Spencer said that Xbox One, the plan was it could go beyond the 10 or 12 years that, the 360 did. Well, times are changing. 4K kind of came up and started running faster than people thought it was going to. And even though it hasn't fully adopted, it's clearly going that way. So you have to do something. So they have made the system to kind of be a stopgap in some ways, but you don't put all this power and everything in it and then tell developers we're going to leave it up to you to figure out how you're going to allocate the resources and not expect that at some point, and I don't think it's soon, it's not going to be this year or next year, or maybe not even early 2019, but at some point there's going to be a title that is going to require the processing power that the Scorpio can provide that other things can't. And when that's the killer app that they know is going to start moving Scorpios, I guarantee you that it's going to be a real thing. And there are going to people say, gotta migrate. This is effectively, it was the tail end of the one generation, but now it's moving towards the next one.
Well, you have development time for games has increased exorbitantly now. Like the amount of detail that they have to put into these games, it feels like these games take in some cases 4 or 5 years.
For sure.
I mean, unless they have multiple studios making one every every year, like Call of Duty or something. But yeah, with development times the way they are, console generations don't make sense anymore. It's all right, Kai, we're going to make one game per system, of a franchise that you love or something. You can't do that to people. You got to be able to give them at least 2, maybe 3, something like that, if possible.
Right.
If they can break the console generation concept, I'd be thrilled. Absolutely. I think that this is a way for them to future-proof themselves for now, and then just run with it. You know what I mean? Because the way technology has always seemed to work is that we've always had this natural progression, right? Things come out that seem cool, but then one of usually 2 technologies emerge, right? And one of them tends to carry on and the other one tends to go away. Maybe 3D is not a thing, right? But 4K is what is kind of the next step, right? So I don't know. I think 4K, like you said, I feel like I didn't hear about 4K until a year ago, and now it's everywhere. So yeah, this is a good way for them to just future-proof themselves. They don't have to release the second Xbox.
Now, in order for this thing to take off, and I don't care if they're marketing towards a specific piece of the gaming community or not. We've talked about it before. They need games, right? Mm-hmm. I like a lot of the things that I've heard about what's going to happen with existing games. Games that are using dynamic range as far as frame rate and I forget the actual term that they call it, but
HDR?
No, not for HDR. There's a process where the resolution will change to make the frame rate get closer to locking at 60%, 60 frames per second.
Oh, I'm sure it's adaptive resolution.
Yes, maybe.
That sounds scientific enough that we can get away with it.
I think that sounds good.
I'm sure we'll get a YouTube comment calling us idiots.
But for games like that, it's going to push both. So it's whatever, instead of trading off, hey, a 1080p versus 60 frames per second, now it can boost both of those up to their highest level. They'll hit it consistently, whatever. It's going to fix all those things. So your existing catalog is already going to be better. We already talked about how the 360 stuff is all going to look better. In addition to those things, they're going to still need things that they can show off in native 4K to put it out there and say, this is why it's better than the PS4 Pro.
We got to wait for E3 for those videos, man. We got to see that living proof.
Yes, and you know what? And I think what this announcement yesterday did was open the door for nothing but games at E3.
Yeah, most likely. That's a good point, actually. I really like that. Why talk about the boring specs on the stage when they can be and I've noticed that's a trend at E3. I don't know if you guys watch it in detail every year. I tend to watch as much as I can. They've been doing this new thing now. They come on stage, they're oh, it's been a great year for us. Now it's all about the games, and then they just walk away, and for an hour you're just game after game after game. Yeah. That's really all we want, Yeah.
I expected the Xbox Scorpio showcase at E3 is going to be bananas. Now, I don't think any of those games are going to be coming out in 2017. I don't think we're going to see any of these large titles. Maybe
Well, here's one point: is that Shadow of Mordor is being marketed as being one of the first games to be run on Scorpio.
Yeah.
They just revealed the alpha. I want to say alpha gameplay 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that was one of the things. It's going to be PS4, Xbox One, and they said Scorpio.
I bet that's going to look sweet too. That's a good game to kind of showcase that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's something. I think that processing power, because of the way the game is with the Nemesis system that they're bringing over from Shadow of Mordor.
Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of War is the new one.
Oh, but the way they're kind of marketing that game and how open world it's going to be with the different territories and the processing power for the Nemesis system where. You kind of have a arch nemesis in the game that you battle against in different points. I mean, that process.
The amount of units on screen too, I think, was another thing. Those were full scale sieges.
Yes,
there's just stuff happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So obviously, the more things that are moving on screen, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet. So we know Shadow of War will be one of those titles that we actually probably will see this year because I'm sure it'll come out with the launch. Or whatever.
Here's a question, right? So if that game comes out August 22nd.
Yes.
So does Scorpio come out before August?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that they're still targeting holiday because
I think that's what the article said.
I don't want to hear it.
It's still holiday 2017.
I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess November because I think that they're gonna launch it around Black Friday, maybe a little afterward, something. I think it's gonna be November, but Shadow War will just be there, now in its Scorpio version, or it'll just run on Scorpio or be flaunted as look
They
how
may
much better it
re-release,
looks
some
with
packaging or something like
some-
that.
Yeah, a
something,
bundle.
yeah.
Like you can get the base unit, and then you're gonna get the Shadow of War.
Oh, that'd be
bundle,
smart if
or
they
the-
bundled it with a game, unlike
Yeah.
the PS4 Pro. That's just like, we're so cool. You don't even need games for this thing. It's so sweet.
I think they
or
probably will, because a lot of like the Xbox Slims and everything, they're
Everything Xbox does has a game with
has
it.
a
Yeah.
bundle.
yeah. So we know Shadow of War will be one title that we'll play on it. We'll probably see that. I imagine we'll see that maybe at E3.
Yeah, I would think so.
Forza
We
7.
know Forza 7 is going to be because
Forza.
that was the tech demo. I'm sure that they just didn't coincidentally have a tech demo ready in a year that it would likely come out anyway. So we know Forza 7 will be there.
What if it's called Forza 7 Horizon 4? It's
Okay.
two games in one.
Well, I'll take my money. You want to give me two good racing games? Then I'm sold. I imagine Crackdown 3 is going to be
Oh yeah.
on Scorpio. Like it's going to be a big Scorpio title.
So
There's a
excited.
lot going on in that game with all the destruction and number of building stuff.
Yeah.
Like Scorpio would be prime for that.
Please bring back Mech Assault. Just saying. I want Mech Assault again. Because that game had
Phil,
amazing-
if you're watching,
Mr. Spectre, or Spence as we call you, since we're buds. I want Mech Assault. God, that game was good. Oof.
I don't know. I mean, is it possible we see Sea of Thieves as a Scorpio, flag title?
Well, you said the alpha was fun. The problem is I don't know if enough people know about it, enough to care about it. I mean, hardcore gamers do if they're like looking at it, but casual people don't have any idea what Sea of Thieves is.
I think it's still early. Like I've noticed that Xbox has kind of made a shift where they're not talking about games as early anymore. It used to be like, I mean, look what happened with Scalebound and what was that other one? Fable Legends, right? We knew about those games way before they were due, and then they got canceled. So I feel like part of their strategy has become not to say things as much until it's like getting closer. That's why I think we'll hear things at E3. I still don't think we're going to see them like in
I
this
think
year.
both those
But
games had gameplay reveals at E3 last year or a couple years ago.
it might have been a
And
couple
then
years ago.
They got scrapped. I think that whole Fable 3
Fable Legends is terrible.
The Fable Legends studio got shuttered like not long after that gameplay
Yeah,
reveal.
they shut that whole thing down.
Yeah.
I played that game and it was not good. It was so boring. It was very sad because I love regular Fable.
You didn't talk about the teraflops.
They promised 6 teraflops. They delivered 6 teraflops.
That is true. I just love that word.
Teraflops.
What a stupid word. I hate it. I hate that word so much.
Flops.
Flop. Teraflops. Like teraflops.
It doesn't even sound like something you should be excited about in a gaming console.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. You go, what? This is a mess of a podcast.
It's going quite well. We covered a lot of great specs. We talked about our game theories on what's coming out.
But so going back to the strategy aspect of this, I think that this was done deliberately. I think that the reason why they gave it to Eurogamer is because they wanted to do that put up or shut up move. Like, hey, listen, you guys have knocked us for not, for being behind the PS4 since we launched. Here, we're going to give it to a third party. Everybody trusts this company. We're going to give them a carte blanche to just look through it, mess with it, whatever. And if they tell you it's great, then you'll believe them because it's not even us saying it. And I think they did a nice job of that. Where do you think they go from here? Like, they need to have the games. They have the console now with the tech specs in there. What else do they need to do to make you interested in a Scorpio?
Affordability,
Affordability.
honestly.
Yeah, good luck
Like,
with that one.
I'm-
I don't see this thing being any less than like $5.99 at the lowest.
See, I don't know. Did you see, so Digital Foundry took a look at all the components and they said, based on what we have here and what I think the industry is, they believe that it's a $499 console
That's about what the Xbox One was
when it came out.
it
Yeah.
came out.
No.
It seems like speculation on anything now leads to just accurate information on most gaming related stuff. It's
mean-
like, we got a release date, like Destiny 2 is possibly coming out, guys, maybe, and it's like this exact same date. Everyone knew the date was going to come out, like in terms of the release, like the
It's
actual
the
announcement.
worst kept gaming secret.
Right. Well, it's like all these gaming secrets are like, ooh, we think this is happening. I'm pretty sure you know. So there's a good chance if Eurogamer was in there, these guys are probably like, yeah, man, $4.99, we did it, high five, you know. And he's like, he like caught it on his camera or something, you know. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I feel like if that's what he's saying, then let's just run with it. $4.99.
And I think $4.99 is an interesting price point. Scott and I, we were talking about this earlier. I think there's a chance that actually it's cheaper than $4.99. And if you would have asked me that like a month ago, I don't know that I would have thought that.
Yeah.
But when you talk about where they've been with the position of their console, if they came out with a $600 or $700 console, who is buying it?
Not anyone for like a year or two.
Dude, I hope this thing comes out for $7.99 and I can come back to this moment in footage and go, hey, Jason, watch this. And you'll be like, I think it's going to be less than $4.99. And if it was more than that, who would buy it? And I'll just be like,
Like, but here's the thing, Chris. So it might be $7.99, but they're offering payment plans with it, though. So, like, now I can totally buy it.
Ooh. Or if you trade in your Switch.
I don't know. I might actually have money
Why do
left
you
over.
want to kill
I might have money
everybody's
left
joy?
over.
I don't know. I have nothing against the Switch.
What
I don't
do you
know why
have against the Switch,
I don't know why I'm pooping on the Switch all of a sudden. I got nothing against the Switch.
I don't know. I actually do think I think that there is a chance that they sell it for less than $4.99, and here's why. It is not unheard of.
No, man.
Stay with me. It's not unheard of to take a loss on a console, right? Because you make the money up in
Initially.
accessories, and you make the money up in games, right? In software. When you're in the position that Microsoft is in, where they are being outsold by Sony 2-1, and they have this weird stagnation of games coming through, and they have a console on the horizon. The PS4 Pro is going to be probably $350 in a bundle by the time holiday comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're walking to the store and you go, I can buy a PS4 Pro with a bundle, including some kind of game, for $350, or I can buy that thing for $500-$600. Why are you making that choice? You have less games, you have more money, and if you're if you're not the super in-depth look at all the specs person, you're just saying, okay, 4K.
But that's the thing, though. The Scorpio is for the super in-depth look at all the specs people. This is for the content creators. This is the elite system.
Right.
We're all sitting here talking like this is the next Xbox One Slim, and I don't think that's what they're doing here. I think this is for a top end of people. This is for the elite console, not the
good point.
console peasants.
Remember the Elite controller too, though.
The Elite
That was-
controller's
It's
$150.
$150, but at the same time, it took some time, but eventually people started to buy into that, right?
Well,
it's
yeah.
like 3 times the amount of money that a regular controller costs, almost, right?
Right.
But you gave it some time. It's now in stores. It's not hard to get, right? And people can just go buy whenever. And I think the sales on those were probably way better than they expected.
Maybe. Because I'm sure, plenty of people who aren't pro gamers or whatever were like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll get an Elite controller. Why not? Like, I would do it if I had $150 to just drop. But if you could somehow know the statistics of every Xbox One owner and how many of them own an Elite controller, it's probably not like a huge portion, I would think.
Probably not, no. But then didn't the Elite came out as an Elite bundle as well? Did it not for like $500?
I don't think it included a controller.
I'm almost positive.
There was an
there
Elite
was.
console.
There was. That's what I mean. The Elite console,
but it had
with
a
the
bigger
Elite
hard
controller.
drive. It did not.
No,
I don't
no.
think it had.
Did it not?
I
No
don't-
way.
I don't think it
Elite
had
is where
the
they
controller.
Elite controller came out like way after that.
Well, I'm not saying like the system was really any different, but it was
No,
more like
the-
a bundle with the controller.
No, the
and,
system
like,
was.
way, man.
It was the system that was different. So the Elite system had a different hard drive in it,
Okay.
which loaded a little bit faster. It was like marginally better, and it had a bigger hard drive. It was a bigger one, and it was like the actual mechanics of it was
Okay.
different, but it was not. It did not include the Elite controller.
Okay.
But I honestly think that they are pitching this as like the, hey, it's for the elite whatever thing, because you undersell it, right? We're like, hey, we're not expecting to sell a ton of these things, right? So this way there's less room for failure. Because if they're like, you guys are going to love this so much, and everyone's going to buy one, and we're going to give it away like Oprah, you get a Scorpio, you get a Scorpio, you get a Scorpio, and then nobody buys it or they underperform, then they're even in more trouble, right? Because they're like, you guys said all this stuff was going to happen, and investors are freaking out and everything else. If they say, hey, listen, this is going to be a niche thing, it's for the people who are really into whatever, and then they make it attainable, and everybody's like, cool, I'm on board, now they've done something amazing, right? I think it's all a marketing thing.
So marketing for like saying it's for the hardcore gamers, we're going to sell more Xbox One S's than Scorpios. We're projecting that, and then it comes out at a affordable price point, and they essentially have head faked the market.
Here's what we should
that's
do.
a good point.
Here's what we should do.
I like that.
When the time comes, okay, and all the information's out, we should release a video on our channel here, and we're gonna edit the footage together. It's either gonna be me or you saying our predictions, and then just like sad music. Whoever's wrong, it'll just be like sad music.
I already promised David I was going to
black and
anime
white
cry if something happened wrong with this. Yeah.
Can you guys cry in queue for that?
I want to like.
I'll work on it.
We should do like that fade to gray, you know, or whatever, and just have like a stream of anime
We'll
tears
get
coming down
like
your
a
face.
violinist or something.
The music from that old Incredible Hulk show. When
When he's walking down the highway
Yeah,
at
where
the
it's
end
like, yeah,
of each episode.
This is gonna happen.
yeah.
It's gonna be one of us.
Imagine though, if you market this as, well, actually, let me ask you this: how many people do you think view themselves as hardcore gamers that are not?
6.
Good, it's a good round number.
Sounds accurate.
There's these 4, and then there's 2 that I live with at home. I'm just kidding. I really am.
I already said I'm a filthy casual, so I do not see myself as a hardcore gamer at all.
I have hardcore gaming knowledge, but I'm not by any means a hardcore gamer.
I can't
But do you
afford
think
to
that
be hardcore.
do you think there's a group of people that consider them hardcore gamers, that actual hardcore gamers are like, nah, dude, you're
Yeah,
casual.
they're called teenagers.
Right, but there's a
They're
huge group of
called
that.
MLG
Imagine if you
athletes.
dangle this
Well,
carrot.
16 to 24-year-olds.
That's
There's your,
a-
there's
there-
your hardcore
yeah, there you
gaming
go.
graphic.
There.
Yep,
No
he's
families,
right.
no jobs, little responsibility. Their free time is either they're in their college, they're drinking a ton on the weekends and nights, or they don't have much of a social life. Not to stereotype, they're staying in and playing video games with their friends.
Yeah.
We're all about stereotypes in this show. You go ahead and stereotype away. No, but imagine if you dangle this carrot in front of somebody who considers them a hardcore gamer, right? Like, here's the hardcore console, and it's attainable. Well, sign me up. If it's only $450, I can afford that, and I've already kind of thought maybe I'm a hardcore gamer, so I guess this just proves my point. I'm gonna go to get that.
A lot of college kids donating plasma on the weekends to get
I'm,
their
I'm
Scorpio.
glad you can afford that. You know, makes me feel real nice when you talk about your financials with other people. Must be nice. I'm gonna go home and eat ramen noodles. Drink Faygo.
Fago's delicious.
It isn't bad.
So yeah, I think it's a marketing ploy. I think that they believe that they're going to sell more of these things than they are, if for no other reason but if you are going to put this much money into building the console, the only way you're going to recoup those costs is if you sell enough of them to do so. So if you're really truly planning on only selling a very limited amount of these things, you are just going to lose a ton of money.
Unless it costs a buttload of money to buy one.
Yeah.
They could sell like 11 of them if they're each like $22,000.
We're going to make a video. If this comes out and it's
All right.
not $22,000,
All right. That was hyperbole. Okay. It was an exaggeration, but my point remains valid.
the video will be called the Hyperbole.
That-
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
really. The Hyperbole.
Stop.
So anyways,
I
it'll
really
be-
want a Fago now. Do you have any Fago?
There's a dollar store around the corner. We can just go up there.
I did.
They get that stuff in bulk.
It's like 18 of them for $1.
Is Aldi still open?
Maybe.
You can probably get it there.
Yeah. So I guess the time will tell. I'm excited for E3 though, because like I said, I think that E3 is going to be a lot about games. They've opened up the opportunity to just talk games, and I think that's what they need. We need to see what games they're working on. We got to see what the processing power of the Scorpio can do with an actual game. I'm excited. I think that this stuff tells me at least enough to get me excited. I don't know that I'm still going to buy one because, again, it's going to come down the price point. I'm hoping I'm right, but maybe I'm going to be in a video and I'm going to be sad-faced when I'm not going to buy one. But I'm excited. So, anybody else with me? Who's pre-ordering? Just kidding.
Pass.
So,
Yeah.
nope.
So
I need to see more.
I know.
Don't
I'm
get me
just
wrong. I
thinking-
love
I feel the
speculation
same way.
talk. This is fun. We get to
feel the same
banter
way.
back and forth. Oh, this is gonna be great. It's like, oh, I don't think so. But honestly, like, you gotta show me something. They showed a still of a game. A still screenshot doesn't tell me anything. I want to see it moving. I want to see if it actually looks different. I want to see what kind of games they're coming out with. If this hardware makes it to where it makes it, there's a reason I need to own this hardware to play those games, then I will go and look into it.
For sure, yeah.
If it doesn't give me a reason other than, oh, it's faster and more powerful, then I'm like, well, I don't care. I already have an Xbox. I'm not going to worry about it. Unless the game plays like total trash, which then at that point, the Scorpio makes a lot of sense, but then also has just killed everybody from, that already owns one. That's dangerous territory.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. I mean, cool. If you want to say, like, do you want to be an elite gamer? Be like, sure. Be like, here, open your wallet and give us money for this elite gaming system. Okay, great. But what if I don't want to? Can I still play everything on my Xbox? Yes, you can. But then what's the point?
That's the point. Why do we have three different consoles?
When you have a PC, one of my favorite things about PC gaming, and anyone will tell you this that doesn't need PC gaming, especially when they buy like 3D intensive games, okay? You go in, the first thing you do is you don't even start the game. Nobody does. They go straight to settings. And they go, oh, anisotropic filtering, 16x, QAAX, like all this stuff, high, ultra settings, custom, whatever you want to do. You just ramp everything up there. You throw it all as high as it can possibly go. And you load it, and you see, like, what happens. Is that it works great? You're like, sweet. And the first thing you do is you tell all your friends that you're playing the newest game on the best settings. All right? That's a point of pride. But if you can't, then obviously you chop it down or whatever. And I've noticed this because I've been gaming with a lot of people that we do this stuff on PC. Like, go, hey, what are you running it on? Oh, I'm running it on Ultra. Cool. What do you have in your system? Blah, 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 blah. Great. I'm running it on Medium. Looks like it's time for me to upgrade maybe. These are valid points that I feel like we always have discussions about. Like, go, okay, my system's starting to show its age. Maybe there's a reason. I can still play the game, but I want it to look awesome. So I get that. I get that I want my games to look sweet. But for some reason, PC, because it gives you all of the options, it's different than a console that just goes, here's a box that does one thing. Do it. And go. And you don't have to do anything. There is no complicated settings. You can mess with the audio. You can turn subtitles on and off. You can invert your sticks. And then that's it. What else do you do? There's really not much customization, right?
Right.
So when you're trying to sell almost like what are PC specs to a console generation that doesn't do customization, I guess I just don't relate, honestly. I cannot relate to this. If this was like the newest PC, I'd be like, okay, I'm considering that now. That'll be my next upgrade maybe.
See,
but a console thing doesn't make sense to me.
I'm the exact opposite because I don't want to tinker with the system. I don't PC game for a lot of reasons, but one of those is that I don't want to have to worry about like, oh, I got to swap this thing out. I got to take my company. Like, I just want to pop it in and go. But you give me something that I'm going to walk into a store and go, Jesus, like this looks incredible. I can have this by just giving you this money. Take these dollars. I will bring my thing home and play it.
Yeah.
That excites me. Within reason, obviously. I didn't spring for the 1S because I didn't feel like it was that big of a, it wasn't worth the amount of money it was going to cost to get the incremental upgrade. So if this truly makes things look that much better, I'm on board, especially because I'm going to be in the market for a 4K Blu-ray player. And if I'm going to buy a $200 to $400 Blu-ray player to play 4K things, and I can spend $100 or $150 more and also get it as a Scorpio instead,
sure,
that makes sense.
I guess I just need a benchmark, like when I see like what can I customize on my PC games, I have benchmarks, right? I can see, is it low? Is the number small? Is it 4 or is it 16? Like, these are things that I can compare stuff to. And I may not fully understand it all, but higher numbers usually are better. And, like high is better than medium or ultra is better than, than great or whatever it is. But when you're on an Xbox, I guess it's nice to know like that when you put that disc in, you're on whatever they consider to be the best looking thing at that time, right? Whereas on PC, I can always constantly see the benchmarks. I'm like, all right, I'm starting to see my games degrade now. Like, it means it's time for an upgrade, which realistically, people upgrade their systems every 4 or 5 years anyway, for the most part. Now, we may see an end to that like we spoke about earlier. Yeah. But I guess I like the benchmark, right? That's the key word for me, is knowing where I'm at. Am I at the top, or am I in the middle, or am I at the bottom, right? That's what I just want to know that. I mean,
I think that's because you have that PC blood, PC gamer blood in you.
It's very
because
possible.
For your prototypical console gamer, you don't care about those things. You just want to know that it works. And it's not going to be until you go over to somebody's house and see what it looks like, and you're like, I didn't even realize what I'm missing out on.
Sure.
But when you see that, it's going to be just like the standard definition HD thing, and then you can't go back.
Before I had another thing I just thought about. What if I don't own a 4K TV though, and I have this system? Do you know anything about that?
I do. It'll still improve the visuals for you.
Okay.
It's got a super sampler, which will take your 1080 stuff. So it's like your television is limited to a 1080 output, like because most people's are right now. It will still make the quality of your picture better.
Okay.
It'll make it a sort of HDR kind of, it'll use like a mock HDR. It won't be as good as true HDR. But that's also, to me, that's a huge thing because even if you're like, you know what, I would do this, but I don't have the 4K TV. I don't have the 4K.
Well, we know they're not expensive, really. It's just it's hard
depends.
to throw away a 50-inch TV that
But
works.
if you're going to buy a $500 television and a $500 console, now you're spending $1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now you have the opportunity to say, like, you know what, this makes sense that if I want this, I can buy it, and I don't have to worry about making the other upgrade right away. I'll still see improvement,
Sure.
And then down the road I can do it. And it's going to help your television. Your signal coming in from your cable box will make that a little better too. That's awesome.
That is very cool.
I'm not saying that
I'm
not saying that I'm absolutely sold on it. I'm excited for what I've seen. I think again, I agree with you guys in the sense that you need to see games in motion. Like you have to see how it works.
I think I'm in the same camp as David is. I'm like I want to see something visually at E3. I want to see gameplay on the console physically, like through a video ad, from E3. I just running down the specs for me right now and like a still shot of a Forza.
Forza.
I'm intrigued, but I want to see a little bit more.
Well, maybe Chris and I can set up like a GoFundMe account for $22,000, and then we can buy one.
Buy one.
But we'll share it on
I'll get it on Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah. Have like custody of it.
Okay.
All right, so that is the DwnFwdPUNChcast episode 7, segment 1, and the Xbox Scorpio news and Microsoft's overall marketing strategy. Stay tuned for segment 2, which we will now focus on the Sony PlayStation and where they're going with their marketing strategy. See you in a bit.